Peace, everybody. It's Mr.13th, and I'm back with a new episode of The Sit Down. Today we have a staple in the New York City community. He's an author, a photographer, a documenter of the culture. Joining me today is Kurt Boone.
What's up, guys? What's up? Peace.
Yeah, I want to thank you for coming out, man. I want to let everybody know, too, that this is probably the coldest day of the year.
It's so fun.
And this man is sitting here. He made it. He didn't cancel. And I really appreciate him for being here. Thank you.
All right, what's up, guys? No problem. Thank you so much for having me, Chris.
Yeah, definitely. So, I met him about a month or two ago. I bought a book for him. It was called Plywood NYC. This is the book right here. Can you tell us about this book and how you came about creating this book?
Yeah, so I was following the news like everybody else when George Floyd got murdered, and I took my camera out and started following the protests early on, and I started at on the Upper East Side, and I covered East 80th Street to 59th Street at first, and I noticed all these upscale stores put plywoods on their windows, but the marchers didn't destroy those stores, right? Is only when I got to Soho and there was a lot of damage in the stores, and I just saw people putting up plywood boards. It was no art at first. So when I photographed, it was no art. I photographed that first week, the protest happened right after George Floyd. So that's George Floyd died May 25th. So that to June 2nd, that first week, I photographed a lot of plywood in the marches. That second week, I read an article in the New York Times that artists were painting the plywood boards in Soho, and I ran down to Soho the next day, and I just started photographing these boards, right? And this is where, the fresh plywood story kind of began. And I came up with the poem, because I write poems. I came up with the poem first. I call it Fresh Plywood, right? NYC. It was really a poem about stores boarding up their storefronts. And me as an African American wanted to write a poem about the struggle we had as African Americans, and how that plywood was a way to, I guess, be scared of African Americans from the protests, because African Americans have been fighting for their freedom almost 400 years in the United States. And so this is these protests are not new, but I just thought in my poem, and I didn't get a chance to finish writing the poem, but I coined it Fresh Plywood NYC, and I'm going to write about the struggle of Black folks and where we are today through poetry, right? So, so the poem didn't get completed, but I kept a note that I wanted to write something about all this plywood. So eventually I started photographing the protest art on the plywood for a couple of weeks, right? And by I said May 25th, George Floyd got killed. That might not be right, but around there. But by say June 15th, almost 3 weeks, there must have been over 100 boards painted by a lot of artists, right? And at that time, I didn't know the artists, but I had captured so much. I said, wow, this is unreal. And so my first day as an independent author, I said, I need to document this and put this in the catalog, because no one's going to believe it.
So how long did it take for you to document all the plywood that you have in this book? Right.
So I would say by the end of August, from June 1st through 2nd to the end of August, I was able to capture maybe 300 murals in this. It was primary in Soho, the retail district.
Mm-hmm.
I did get a few in here from Brooklyn and a few from Union Square, but the majority of these murals, there's 300 in here, are from Soho. So in that, like, I would say 2 mile square radius from West Broadway to the Bowery,
Mm-hmm.
from Houston Street to Canal, there are hundreds of little boutique stores.
Yeah.
And each boutique had plywood boards. Some of them were rich boutiques like Gucci,
Yeah.
Nike, and all there down there, because that's kind of like an upscale shopping district. So all boutiques had individual boards, and every board got painted on, right? There's not one that was missed.
Yeah.
So I caught 300. I sometimes didn't catch all of them, but
Yeah.
I caught a lot of them.
But no, you caught a good amount.
Good amount of them. So like 300. So I said, you know what? I called my designer. I said, listen, I got these just unbelievable photographs of all this art, and I want to put it in the catalog because I know like 6 months from now, no one's going to believe me. So if I tell you that happened, you say, oh, yeah. It probably happened. But if I show you this gigantic catalog with 300 pages, yeah, you're going to believe it happened because I showed you proof.
Yeah.
So by like October of the same year, 2020, I had this catalog, Fresh Plywood. And I got a chance to meet the artists, and I just said, wow, that's amazing. And most of the artists, they loved it. I didn't get one, like, negative feedback from any artist.
That's great.
That's in the book. Sometimes, like, you photograph the artist's artwork, and you're like, oh, you didn't contact me for permission. But no one said that. They were glad I did it.
Yeah.
And all of them bought the book. That's how glad they were.
Yeah.
But it was also the story, Fresh Plywood NYC, Artists Rise Up in the Age of Black Lives Matter. It has like a meaning to it.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, like, you documented this during the epidemic and the whole Black Lives Matter movement. How was the city, like, the feel where you were out there capturing these pictures?
When I was capturing the marches, it was real powerful and emotional. I've been documenting street culture 40 years. So when I came upon this experience, I was already well established in street culture, right? So, but the power of 5,000 youth marching through the street, protesting, saying Black Lives Matter, say their name, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, it was real emotional, and I was like admiring, like, these young people really being foot soldiers to let the politician know, this police brutality got to stop, and I just felt the emotion of it. And you're right. It was during the pandemic. People were still required to wear masks, but that seemed not to stop them. They just said, I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm going to the streets and letting people know that this is wrong. And for me to photograph it was an amazing experience. The artwork was in particularly special because I think the artist had a real impact to me on making society feel and corporations feel, hey, like, this stuff is wrong. And a lot of corporations started making changes because the art was in their face. So you got Black Lives Matter on the front of your Nike store, you want to think, like, yo, Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
You can't hide it. You can't, like, say, oh, it's in Brooklyn, I'm not going to worry about it. Now, it's in your face. And so that's why I thought the artists helped push the movement forward. And I was like, I just happened to be there.
Yeah.
And being that I know how to produce books, I have a skill set that I could do something. Maybe I can't do speeches, but I could produce a book and let everybody see what's going on. That was kind of like the strategy, and it was well received by the artists in the book. So
I think the book is dope, man. I love the book personally. And I this is what opened me up to who Kurt Boone is. I got that book, and then I did a Google search and came up on your website.
Okay.
And I saw that, he has a whole bunch of other books. Tell us about some of the other books like that you feel are most notable that you put out.
Yeah, okay, so some of the things I love about like urban culture, I have a passion for the messenger world. So I did a number of books about bike messenger and foot messenger culture. You know, one was Asphalt Warrior, it was about a memoir about being a New York City foot messenger and how I traveled all over the city and delivered these packages and stuff. And I was featured in the New York Times and on the cover of Courier magazine. So I was getting love for being a fast courier, which most couriers don't get love from the media, right? So I was one of the blessed ones, but I was good at it, and I could write about it, I could talk about it. But, you know, the courier job was kind of special and putting out books about that, and I traveled to different cities, had a chance to experience messengers from different cities and how we all struggle, to relate the New York struggle to what was happening in Chicago or even in Tokyo. I flew out to Tokyo and met those couriers out there, and I was in Montreal in Canada. So I had a really good experience with the messenger books. There's a bunch of them on my kind of website. And then I have an affinity also for sneaker culture. So I managed to put out a book called Laces Tight. It's a poetry book about sneakers.
Okay.
But if you love sneakers, you could relate to it because sneaker culture was a black culture long before the brands got a hold of it and started marketing it. You know what I mean? But I was blessed because one of the brands, you know, came to me and said, "Hey, you could wear our sneakers," and that brand was Converse.
Okay, so you got approached by Converse.
Yeah, I was getting paid, but I can get all the shoes I want. You know what I mean? And be on that influence. So not everybody gets that, you know, and so that was like a special moment. So Laces Tight, it doesn't talk about the influencers aspect of it, but it tells people about how I grew up loving sneakers through rhymes. Yeah. So it's all about rhymes in Laces Tight. Yeah. It's a cool book, and I talk about the early days of, you know, in the 70s, junior high, where we save our little money, we buy the latest Pro-Can, latest Adidas, latest Converse, you know, and Pony was a brand too that was back in the day in the 70s.
And for the people that don't know about Kurt Boone, where are you from?
All right, I'm from Hollis, Queens area.
Very famous area.
It's known to hip hop, you know, Run DMC towns, all this area, you know, and you listen to My Adidas, they talk about 205th Street in Hollis, you know, with their Adidas hanging on the corner. So, you know what I'm saying? So those guys, they know fully well, you know, like, we're from Hollis, Queens, and, you know, we love sneakers. So I'm from there. And my early writing was actually in 1977, 78. I was writing about kind of like black culture as a youth, you know, in poems and stuff like that. You know, and I would go to house parties and stuff, and those early DJs were mixing records, but it wasn't like the Bronx in those days because we live in suburbia, and most of us, our parents owned houses, big houses, right? So it wasn't like, you know, in the projects or something, you know, in the Bronx or Brooklyn. It was like different. So I didn't come across like in the 70s, like kids breakdancing.
Okay.
But you can go to the South Bronx, and they were doing it, right? So, but that said, we still had the DJs, stuff like that, and Queens had its own kind of early hip-hop thing, but it wasn't like where it all began in the Bronx, you know?
So you started in the 70s with writing poems, and you were a bike messenger for 24 years. And
Foot messenger, but that's
Foot messenger. Sorry, got it. And you know, you've been documenting the culture of being a foot messenger and graffiti. I see you did a book with James Top. You was a collaborator,
right.
And you collaborated with Butch too as well.
Yeah, that's my latest collab, Butch too.
How do you come about these collaborations with these artists?
Okay, so basically, as I mentioned, I don't know if it was on tape, but I mentioned that when I was in the messenger. I was a messenger in the messenger world. There were quite a few graffiti artists,
Okay.
right? And so my actual first collaboration was with Carl Weston, and he asked me to write a Wikipedia page
Okay.
for Videograph,
Yes, sir.
right?
What do you?
So I wrote that for him, and he brought me into his world. And he was, at the time I met him, which maybe 15, 17 years ago. He was doing Videograph, but it wasn't like he had already went through an experience where the cops arrested him and took a lot of his tapes, right?
Yeah.
So he was on the rebuilding part.
Okay.
In charge when I met him, like getting Videograph back off the ground,
Yeah.
started making T-shirts and stickers, but he didn't have a Wikipedia page. He saw I had one.
Okay.
So he asked me to write that. But in between that, he took me to where he was living. He was living at Henry Chafar's house,
Okay.
right?
Yes, sir.
And I had a chance to meet Henry. We exchanged books, right?
Yeah.
I gave him one of my poetry books. He gave me one of his graffiti books. So it was a cool experience being introduced to graph world through kind of Carl Weston, right? So, that was like 15 years ago. So I was still heavily involved documenting bike messenger culture. And Bush 2 invited me to one launch party, and I can't remember what it is, but Martha Cooper had put out a book, and he invited me to that. But I didn't get to mention that Carl Weston, the company was Mobile Messenger Service.
Okay.
So if you ever want to look it up, it's called Mobile Messenger Service, right? So Carl Weston worked there, and Butch was working there as well. But I only went to this one event with Butch during my time at Mobile, and but I didn't do any collaboration with Butch until the last 3 years, right? Because he didn't really open up to me about his graphic experience, and I didn't know he was like a king.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know he was a king until maybe 3 or 4 years ago, where through my work in urban culture and sneaker culture, right, I would travel around the country, and then I would just listen to some of the pioneers like Fritura,
Yes.
right? So it was one of those times where Fritura was being interviewed by Carlos Mir in Saudi Arabia,
Okay.
and he was talking about how Bush 2 was this legend. And I was like, Bush 2 is that legend, like, what the heck is going on? He's right next to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, he's like a legend. He's not acting like he's a legend.
Yeah.
So I started questioning him about, who are you, man? And he said, oh, yeah, I was in Grab, man. You ask anybody, I was like a king, So I got to listen to him a little bit. And by that time, I had already been doing a lot of books. But what really kicked in is that I did the James Todd books that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
And I showed him that. And then he asked me, do a book for me, kind of so I spent 2 years doing this book for him. And it came out, the first printing came out wrong, but the second printing came out good. So we just getting started. But I was able to, he was able, because he didn't have any old photos, but he didn't save anything. So he was able to get a lot of old photos from those chat rooms on Facebook.
Gotcha.
A lot of old timers share photos.
Some of the other people who documented
A
and
lot
stuff.
of people documented, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was able to pick out maybe from his Facebook page, maybe 15 photos
Gotcha.
of his whole tree,
Yeah.
right? That was still around. So, he had the proof was in it, but he said he lost a lot of stuff. And Case 2 obviously passed away 7 or 8 years ago as well. So it wasn't a lot of information, but as I was learning it, I was like, God, these guys are, kind of well-known. Now, prior to working with Butch, I met Phase 2,
Okay.
right? He tried to bring me in under his tutelage, right? He spent hours on the phone with me explaining the graph world, and that I shouldn't be scared of it. Because I was like, I wasn't too sure I want to get involved with it. I heard rumors, and these guys are rough, and do I need to get into that? And I know Carl Weston, but I wasn't that deep. But FaZe was saying to me, yeah, Kirk, like we could use you. Like you're making all these books, you're on Madison Avenue, and you're black. You're one of us from the hood.
Yeah.
So what if I bring you onto my team, right? So that's kind of like conversation. Unfortunately, he passed away, but I got to meet some of his family members, stuff like that. He was real nice to me, so it was a great memory. But I always said to myself, like, damn, why would this legend really want to take me under his wing? You know what I'm saying?
And that was phase 2 you're talking about.
Yeah, phase.
Yeah, rest in peace, a legendary graffiti writer. And would there ever be a phase 2 book with Kirk Boone? Can you think that possible?
I don't think so. Now when him passing away, we were talking about it a lot all the time. Mm-hmm. But he just passed away. Yeah. So I mean, I know the family. It might come. I mean, I just met his son.
I got you.
His son says, I could do. We could maybe do something.
That would be an amazing book to put out.
But it would probably be mostly his son's work.
Yeah.
And his granddaughter's work. It wouldn't be maybe his work per se, but I might, I know the gallery that represents him, so I have access to pictures of his work. Yeah. So if I really needed it, me and his children could collaborate on a project. But we'll see how that goes. Books are not. I mean, I make it seem simple, but it's a lot difficult. And James he already had like a manuscript. Mm-hmm. He just couldn't get it published. So he said, yo, Kirk, help me get this done. And I helped him do it, So and he got it out there. So a lot of people were impressed that he got it out there, because most people can't get their book out there.
Yeah, shout out to James Topp, who's definitely out there hustling his book. I got a signed copy from him, and if you want a signed copy, you just got to hit him up. He'll definitely get it to you. Yeah,
he's quite a historian too, so... He knows the graphic world real deep. He's real knowledgeable about it.
Yeah, I did a documentary with James, and also edited a segment for his show, his video show, and you was in it.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, so,
I was at the Jamal Shabazz.
Yeah, the Jamal Shabazz event.
Yeah, so I brought a few of these books, so maybe we could show it on the air a little bit. So this is. Just the Bush 2.
Yeah, that's the Bush 2 joint.
Got some whole cars in it, some amazing artwork in it. And this is, if you go like the first few pages, we can find it, but maybe hold it up. Henry Chalfant gave us some photos as a courtesy. But like this, like we could show that whole thing.
Yeah.
Has a Bush too, top to bottom.
I don't want to give you too much of that. You want to see that, you got to buy it.
Yeah. That's what's up, right? And this is I mentioned Laces Tight, which is our sneakers, right?
So these are some of the actual books that this man has put out. Right here, holding it in my hands. Check him out. Check out his website, support. I personally think I have 3 of his books myself.
That's right. And this is one of my messenger books.
Okay.
And it tells the story of what it's like to be a messenger in like New York City. And then on the back is a company called Mobile Messenger Service, mobile parcel carrier, and that's where I met Carl West.
Carl West and Bush 2. Some legendary graphic.
Some graphic.
I don't need to explain who they are, because if you don't know the names that he's mentioning, then you're not really into graph.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I want to thank you for coming. And I also, before we end the interview, I want to know, does anybody wanted to work with you? How did you go about putting that together? How does a person go about putting the...
Well, I mean, you can also put my information in the description of the video, right? But if they want to reach out, just go to Kirk Boone Photography. That's K-U-R-T, Boone, B-O-O-N-E, Photography. And you can get me on Instagram, at Kirk Boone Photography. You can reach me there, or you can reach me on my Messenger account. just the word messenger, and then the number 841. So it's at messenger 841, or you can do what Chris did, just Google my name, and
Yeah, that's
a ton of stuff come up, So I'm proud of like the little recognition I get for covering urban culture. I think it's something that, it came from our heart and it's grassroots, and we should own it. That's how I feel about it. We should own our own culture, and not necessarily like let the big corporations tell us what to do. We tell them what to do because it's our culture, kind of like. So, but yeah, you could just Google my name, Kirk Boone, ton of stuff come up, or as I mentioned, my IG, or, my two IGs, at Messenger841 or at Kirk Boone Photography. You can reach me.
That's right, man. Yo,
direct
hit him up, Kirk Boone. I respect it. I love the work, and he's definitely right. We got to document our own culture for our people. You know what I mean? I'm Boricua. I grew up in Brooklyn. I was born in this hip-hop culture just like yourself, and we can't let anyone else dictate or tell our stories. So shout out to you for coming through today and letting us know everything you've been doing and what you got coming. Actually, what can we expect next for you?
Next I'm working with another early writer. His name is Riff 170. So he was a legend too, and in the 70s, 73, 74. So that should be out like this summer. And then I'm working with a hip hop flyer promoter named the Flyer Messiah, and we have a book coming out on his flyer collection. So he's been collecting all the flyers that he's distributed over the years. He used to work for Def Jam. So he has a deep flyer collection, and we're gonna put out like a little catalog, share with the people.
That sounds like a really dope.
Yeah, his name is Katie, and his company's out there promotion. But the book is called The Flyer Messiah, and it's going to be a whole bunch of flyers he's collected the last 30 years.
All right, well, you heard it here. The Flyer Messiah book coming out with Kirk Boone.
Yep.
And who is the person?
Riff 170.
Riff 170.
Yeah, look him up. Just go to RIFF 170, Riff 170, and that's the Instagram at Riff 170. And he's a legend too. So even if you Google Riff 170, you'll see a ton of material.
A ton of it will come up. Yes, sir. Well, I want to thank you again for coming out on this cold-ass day,
10 degrees outside.
10 degrees feels much less than that. But that's New York, man. This is a real New York winter day. You know what I mean? We don't get many of these like we used to.
Right, that's right.
So,
yeah.
I kind of enjoy it. Some people don't, but I do. So shout out to that real New York cold weather. I want to say thank you again for coming out. This is Mr.13th. This is my first episode back with the sit down. We took a little break, but we will be coming with more episodes. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Thank you.
Thank you, Made for Kings.